talk. Now, you might have heard him a few minutes ago. He lasted about a minute, which is not bad for me sometimes. Just shout out to my wife. But you reached out to me, Dom. Just go back to the story. You reached out to me, Dom, saying you want to get back on air after a few years off from North Talk when that finished up. What made you want to chat about North again?
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Dean, and been an avid listener for since I wrapped things up with Ross at North Talk. Look, I think just after the Carlton game, it got to a point where I was like, oh my god, I've got to share my voice again here because I felt like there was a bit of emotion there that needed to get voiced out, and reached out, and you were happily to oblige to have me on. So thanks so much for inviting me on tonight. Looking forward to it.
No, that's good. So it's been a few years. It's been about 3 years since you've been on.
Yes, yeah, a bit like that. No, I've always stayed in contact with the troop and been in contact with Siobhan and Marnie and Ross and some of the others that were on that show at that time, and we always just sort of share some thoughts on WhatsApp group, but still staying connected to them. But yeah, haven't shared my thoughts on a podcast for a few years now.
No, that's right. Well, not much has changed over the last few years, Dom. We still can't win a game.
We still can't. We still can't. We've changed the coach. We've restructured the football club, and not much has changed on field, unfortunately. So, but we're seeing those grass shoots, right, as we keep getting promised about.
Yeah, I mean, are you before you want to get back on? But the last 3 weeks, there has been a lot of positivity, albeit only one draw in the last three, and a couple close losses. But you're more optimistic about the future after the last few weeks.
Yeah, definitely. And I sort of was sharing with you earlier, like I was at the Essendon game live, watching it in the stands, and from what I saw in the first half was absolutely disastrous. And I think what I saw in the second half was a lot more reflective of what we've seen on the park in the subsequent games against the Lions. And yeah, it's a much better, more competitive style, which I feel like is keeping us in games for much longer. I'm back. If that said reconnecting, sorry.
Yeah, yeah. No, my internet's playing up. Again, I can't remember. I've lost completely track of everything at the moment. Oh, the Brisbane Lions. Now, close draw. Where did you sit on the fence with this? Were you more happy with the draw going against the reigning premiers, or were you like a few people, sort of a bit disappointed that we didn't get another win? And we certainly had opportunities in the last moment. So, can you hear me,
Okay.
Dom?
I think you've stopped talking now, D.
No.
So yeah, look, in
Okay.
terms of the draw, I was never did I think that we were going to be in the contest after half time. So the fact that we walked away with the 2 points, I think, is credit to the club and the direction that we're going in. It was absolutely a missed opportunity, though, and fingers crossed we get better at being able to win these in close, tight games. I think we're also envious of Collingwood a couple of years ago when they just kept winning these tight contests and finding a way to get the job done. Those individual moments that we critique, and the handball that coulda, woulda, shoulda happened to Dylan Stevens, and the missed kicks from the likes of Larkey and Zerha and Parker in that game. But yeah, I think as a whole, I think the fact if we had said at the start of the game, walk away with a draw, I think all of us would have signed up to that. So happy overall for that.
Yeah, well, you're a bit like me. Did you expect? I never thought we were a chance to win a game, even during the course of the game. I was just waiting for Brisbane to kick away. I guess it's a little bit of lost faith in those situations. But yeah, I mean, head, left us. We'll see if Dom will come back on. I am actually going to. This is great live podcasting, by the way, but the internet has been an absolute disaster tonight on my way. Dom, are you? Dom has just come in. Has he come in? Dom, you're back, are you?
I am doing my best here. I'm gonna have to walk outside with
Oh, mate,
antenna aerials soon.
I think it's on my. Back to that. We'll go back to the internet has gone out. You are joking me. Can you hear me, Don? Because the internet just dropped out again. So I don't know what's going on here tonight, but it could be a very short podcast. We'll go back to the last couple of moments. Now, I wasn't too fussed about the Costanti handball to Dylan Stephens. I thought Dylan Stephens should have been the one laid the shepherd for Costanti. He would have been able to cut inside, and there were more options down the middle of the inside 50 rather than out in the pocket. But where did you sit on that? Were you disappointed in Costanti that he probably chose the wrong option there?
Look, I think it could have gone either way. I'm going to preface what I'm about to say by saying that Dylan Stephens' last couple of weeks have been pretty good, but the previous weeks before that, I reckon his disposal efficiency was not great. So I reckon Costanti was probably thinking just pump it in and hope for the best from there. But yeah, I'm not going to begrudge him the kick that he made. I think it could have gone either way. Dylan Stephens could have laid the shepherd as well, or he could have put a block on or whatever. I don't think that was necessarily the defining moment of the game. I think there were other opportunities prior to that we could easily have scrutinised, i.e. Larky's kicking has not been on personally since he put out that article about how accurate he's been back in April. It's been all downhill since then.
Well, it's pretty much it was the most accurate goal kicker of the first 200 goals in his career or something like that, or something to that degree. And, it's all pretty much fallen apart since then. It's generally when he misses the first one, it sort of seems to just compel to miss the next few after that. So hopefully he can get that going. But I guess the positive is in previous years, unless Larky kicks 6 or 7 goals, we'll never have a chance to win a game, Dom.
Yeah, and look, you're a bit of an older statesman like me, so you kind of remember the old Dennis Pagan, sayings. But if Dennis had seen an article like that about one of his players in the '90s, he probably would have, turned around and gave him a whack. But look, from my perspective, Larks is got to. He's got to fix whatever's going on in his head at the moment. I won't say he's got the yips, but certainly he doesn't seem as comfortable in front of goal as what he was earlier in the season. Hopefully this week it's going to be a different story.
Well, it's probably the first time in his career that he's probably struggled a little bit with his goal kick. In general, he's been pretty good. I think last week he kicked fairly straight, but he might have only kicked 2 or 3, whereas this against Port Adelaide, I think he shanked one out on a full or something against Port going back a while ago, and a couple of shockers. So, yeah, but I guess moving forward, one of the big reasons we were in the game last week was Tristan Xerri. That second half was one of the best. Now, you're an older statesman like me. It was one of the best, almost dominant games I've seen in the second half since probably the Carey days. 14 touches, 11 contested, 6 scoring involvements, 4 tackles. Absolutely dominated against Darcy Fort and Big O. He was a big reason why we drew that game, wasn't he?
Yeah, and look, he's come such a huge way. Last year I think he showed signs that he could be one of the game's elite ruckmen, and it was exciting to see what he could do. Barring that sort of 3-game block when overall the side was pretty shit, to be fair, he's been huge. He's been absolutely huge. And, the year before last, I remember watching the games going, like, how did we not trade this guy to St Kilda? We've made a mistake here. and I'm happily eating my words because, I think Kane Cords had him ranked 4th best ruckman in the comp, but not that I watch every single AFL game out there each week, but I really see him as being the absolute dominant premier ruckman. If we'd won probably 2 or 3 more games this year, I think he'd definitely be an absolute lock for All Australian already by round 10.
Yeah, I think it's probably him or Max Gawn, but he dominated Max Gawn in round 2 if you want to go that far. So he probably is right up there with the best ruckman in competition. The only one he struggled with was against De Koning, I felt like. And that was the first quarter. Outside of that, he bounced back pretty well. But I felt like, Dom, he had a few injuries early in the year. Like, not a few injuries. He had the hamstring issue. I was probably holding him back a little bit, not to make excuses for players. Once you cross that white line, you're 100%. But I felt like he probably was a bit slow to get going through early in the year.
Yeah, 100%. And look, I didn't know it was a hamstring, and that may make it.
It looked like a
sense.
hamstring anyway.
Yeah. But it definitely would be great if the club did come out and explain what was the cause for that drop off, because, yeah, I think it really starts with him in the middle now, right? So you can really see how he grabs the ball out of the air, and that's really his style, to grab the ball out of the air and give us that first use, and we weren't able to get that out of him from the Adelaide game, really. So, yeah, fingers crossed he can stay fit, because Lord knows if our ruck relies on Darling to take us through to to the end of the year, that would be a bit of a disaster.
Yeah, well, Prince Equal's got an injury at the moment as well. I don't think it's a long-term injury. I can't remember what they said. I think it was just soreness or something like that. I can't remember exactly. Another player that was a big influence last week, and a lot of conjecture where this guy's future is going to be, Charlie Comyn, but he was back to his best, 21 disposals, 95% disposal efficiency, 12 intercepts, 7 intercept marks, including a couple of crucial ones at the death in the last quarter. I think Siobhan I had on last week's was saying, well, and a few people were agreeing with her at the time that, yeah, maybe we should try him back as a forward. I guess we want to persist with him if he's going to play games like this in the back line, Dom.
Yeah, look, I was a big advocate to get Chom in the back line. I just thought he was the perfect candidate for that. I think maybe in a couple of years' time, I see him being like a Drew Petrie type, where we can potentially swing him forward, swing him back, and really be a bit of a hole filler for us. But at least for the next couple of years, let's let him build out that defensive confidence. And he was huge against the Lions. Those intercept marks is those characteristics that we love from him. I wouldn't mind seeing him punch a bit more. I think he tends to fly for a mark first, and that's often what his first instinct is to do. But it might be just a little bit safer just to sort of put the ball out of bounds or in the goals for a rush. But otherwise, for me, it's him sitting forward of the ball, or sorry, back behind the ball, and yeah, crunching packs, and yeah, just focusing on being a defender.
Yeah, I mean, do you see him as a possibility ever going forward again?
Potentially, like I was saying, like I can see us, in an instance where maybe one of their key opponents, key forward goes down, or we're 10 points down with a couple of minutes to go, and it's like try anything to see how we can do it, or push forward when our halfbacks and defenders are trying to lock the ball in and getting a quick turnover mark or something like that. That's probably where I see him in the next sort of short couple of years. And then maybe one day, if someone like a Will Dawson or someone like that doesn't quite come on the way we would have thought, him going into the back into the forward line to fill that void for us.
Have to look at other options. Obviously, Will Dawson has shown signs as a forward in the reserves, and you've got obviously Finbar Malley. You've been impressed with Finbar Malley so far in his first couple of games?
I'll be interesting to see what he does this week. I think last week was a bit probably reflective of, like you sort of running on adrenaline on your first game, and then the second game, the reality all hits, and he came up with against a really solid defence in the Brisbane Lions. I think if he can kick a couple of goals in against Richmond, he deserves his chance to stick around a bit longer. But if not, if he gets subbed out again in favour of some run and carry, I probably think it'll be, back to the reserves, apply your craft, apply the learnings for another month or so in the VFL, and then get you back in later in the season.
No, that's exactly. There's nothing wrong with getting dropped and developing in the VFL and continuing to develop in the VFL. A lot of people think it's a death sentence or something like that, but at the end of the day, sometimes you're not in the form that the team hopes, and you've got to go find your form in the reserves. And I mean, how do you see that three tall forward line working? I still think it's that forward line's a little bit immobile with the three talls, Darling, Larkey, and Finbar Melly. Do you see that working potentially long term?
Especially, look, I think the weather on the weekend is pretty nice. So, I mean, if the ball comes in, nice and clean, it'll probably work, and as long as they don't get in each other's way. But I think long term, it's going to be, a Geordie Payne or a Cooper or someone like that probably needs to find a spot as a small forward in that forward line, because that's I think what it's probably desperately needing at the moment. I know you're a big advocate for the small forward, so I think that's probably the future for that forward line.
Has shit itself again. Can you hear me now, Dom?
I'm back, mate. Sorry. We're going well there for a
while. I'm back. Beautiful. I was just sort of saying Costante's. Yeah, I know, for about 10 minutes. 10 minutes is a marathon. With Costante, he's not a classic. He's not a classic front and square crumbing forward. He hasn't been. I haven't seen him in front and square, crumbing goal. I've seen Braden George do one in the reserves last week. I wouldn't mind seeing Geordie Payne come into that team just to add a bit more pace and zip in that forward line, create a little bit of defensive pressure as well. I think that will make the forward line a lot more mobile and a lot more dangerous.
Agree, and I was really disappointed that he wasn't named in the extended list. So, it's a shame, because I felt like Constante's probably hanging on at the moment. He had an okay game against Brisbane, but he's just not quite hitting the scoreboard as much as what we would like. And that front and square small forward is probably something that would see us get over the line in a couple of these tight games where we're losing him by a handful of points.
Well, we might as well go straight to the team changes in. No Geordie Payne this week, so I'm going to go on my phone to look at the team changes, because I don't want to open any more tabs on my laptop, because I'm a bit worried about it at the moment. So the way it's loading. So Zach Fisher comes into the team. So does Will Dawson. And Will Phillips. I don't think any of those players come in. I think it'll be an unchanged team. Maybe the only thing that will change is a sub for me, Dom. How do you see it?
I agree, but I was listening to Clarko's press conference today, and he mentioned that Jai Simpkin has a family
I did hear that,
issue. Yeah, so there's potential that if he doesn't play, then Will Phil probably logically comes in for Jaiza. I can't see Zach getting a game, and look, it might be a flip of the coin as to whether or not Finbar gets dropped and Will Dawson comes in. But otherwise, I'm kind of a bit like you. I think it's a team that was good enough to draw against the reigning premier is probably good enough to go up against Richmond.
That's how I see it. Look, that's a fair point. Will Dawson could come in. I only looked at the extended bench now, and I think Finbar Melly's on the ground, actually, so he probably won't get dropped. I think he's in the forward pocket. So
maybe for Dersma, is that a bit of a quiet?
I think Dersma starts as a sub this week, and Bailey Scott starts on the field. That's probably the only. Or maybe Finn O'Sullivan might start as a sub. I think Bailey Scott comes into the team as a starting 22. You can't keep playing him as a sub every week. Otherwise they lose match fitness and so forth. I mean, how do you see it? I mean, we've got O'Sullivan, Dersma, Scott, Fisher, Dawson, Parker, Phillips, Costante, all an interchange bench.
Yeah, interesting that Parker's on the interchange. It might be an opportunity to rest him a little bit and give him a bit of.
You never know, do you?
Yeah, rests for those tired legs. Albeit he's been one of our best for the year. Look, for me, I'd like us to persist with Dersma. I think he's worth giving a shot. I'd like to see him push forward a little bit more. Bailey, what a fall from grace that's been over the last couple of years, and how unfortunate for him that he's got to go find some form. Foss, I don't want to see him dropped, only if he's feeling a bit tired and sore and may potentially need to be rested. But yeah, look, you know what? It'll probably be Will Phil as sub. Let's just be honest here.
Yeah, I mean, we might as well talk about Will Phillips. I really like him. I think a lot of Norths players, not so much players, I assume players like him, but a lot of supporters seem to like him. I like him. Where do you think his career is at? Out of contract into the year. Can't seem to get in the best 22 unless there's injuries to a midfielder. He's probably at the crossroads, isn't he, really?
Yeah, it's unfortunate for him because I think like Siobhan says it best. Like it wasn't his choice to get picked at pick 3, right? Like that was on our list management team at the time. And I think he's really shown enough over the last couple of years to warrant being on the list. It's just unfortunate that we've got so many other midfielders that do a similar sort of role to him and probably have a few extra tricks. Look, if we're going to potentially trade him next year, I just hope whatever we get back is of value and of more of a need. This is going to sound completely crazy, and I won't be surprised if yourself and your listeners don't want to have me back on ever again. But given we have so many midfielders stocks, like and Will Phil is a decent player, like maybe trading someone who's got a little bit more currency, like a Tom Powell or something like that, and getting that potential key forward or key back. That younger player that we might need in that space, and then allowing Will Phil to come up, because I do think he is a good player and probably warrants a spot on the list.
It does. And if you're going to delist him, you probably, well, not even delist him, trade him, you probably only get like a third rounder, fourth rounder for him, which is nothing of value. I mean, it's a lottery pick after the first few picks anyway. I even mentioned last week, maybe you look at trading Jai Simpkin. That's so there's, I mean, if you got that many midfielders, he's getting squeezed out as well on a long-term contract, on a lot of money. I know he's the captain of the club, but, sometimes tough decisions have to be made. And, if you'd probably relish as an opportunity as a number 1, number 2 midfielder somewhere else. So who knows? But I don't think that'll happen. But I'm just sort of.
No, I agree. Like with like we have to work with the the wealth of players that we've got, right? And tough list decisions need to get made every year. Like and being ruthless and treating this like how are we going to position this side for success into the future? Like you say, you can't do it with 21 midfielders on the field. It just doesn't make sense. So how do we convert what we have in abundance into what we actually need?
Yeah, so I mean, you're pretty much of a similar thought to me. That's a very imbalanced list. There's too many midfielders. There's too many small not mid-sized forwards. Someone like an Eddie Ford, who I really rate, is a best 22 player. I feel like can't get in. You can't even get a look in. You can't even get it as an emergency. He's just in reserves. He was playing first half in the back line last week in the reserves, getting a few kicks. But I mean, his career's at the crossroads too, as well, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And like I get so frustrated by the media sometimes because they'll ask, stupid irrelevant questions about like, what's Clarko's perception of, some concussion that a player that he's not even on his team suffered, but they won't ask, what does Cooper Harvey need to do to get in this side? Like how many goals a week does he need to kick, or what do you need to see from that kid so that he can get an opportunity at AFL level? Because guys like Coop, who I feel personally that are doing everything they possibly can to get in the side, aren't getting that opportunity because we are forced to be playing the likes of, Jai Simpkin forward and pushing Foss forward of the ball and Colby McKercher, who he's played his whole entire junior career as a midfielder as a high half forward winger. It's crazy to me.
Yeah, it's just far too imbalanced. I'm glad you agree with me, Dom. We're getting along pretty well, so that's good to hear, mate. So,
I might get a second invite.
That's it. You never know, mate. Yeah, I'm sure you'll be fine. One position we probably haven't talked about is a backline. There's been a lot of, I mean, we talked off air a little bit when we were breaking up on and off with the internet. Not to jinx it, but I've got to touch wood. There's been it's a completely different backline from the round 1 team to where it is now. Griffin Logue's lacking a bit of fitness form. We've tried Callan Dawson there. But a couple of players that are really shining back there, or one in particular. I mean, Charlie Common's been very good, but one in particular that's come in the last few weeks, Riley Hardiman. He looks like he's going to be a player, doesn't he?
Yeah, love him. Love him. He's got that sort of like never say die attitude. He tries to get to every contest. He's one of those kids that thinks about punching first as being his. You can tell he's played as a defender most of his career. I think he's going to grow into his role as he gets more and more confidence. And I think as long as the coaches give him that sort of stability around you're going to be in this team for the foreseeable future, and that pressure of trying to have to hold your spot is off him. I think he's going to be a wonderful asset to that team, and he brings speed and tenacity. And it's sad. He kind of reminds me of a Luke McDonald of about 6 or 7 years ago when he was young and fit and hungry and tackling. So yeah, I wish him all the best, and very, very grateful that that they brought him into the team. He's had such an impact at a very short, and he's certainly doing better than your mate, Mr. Tucker, whose spot he took.
Yeah, look, so I'm gathering you're not an advocate to get Tarsi Tucker back into the team anytime soon?
Look, my philosophy is if they're not contributing to ultimately, what our premiership side is going to look like in the future, then it's no point having him there. And I can't see Tucker being a part of that. Like, you look at what Darling's doing for us at the moment, I can see him contributing. He's allowing our 200 centimetre forwards to be able to develop in the VFL and not being bashed and crashed by AFL size defenders. And I look at Tucker and I look at Hardiman and I was like, well, Hardiman offers way more than what Tucker does on the field, and he's probably got 5 or 6 more years in his career. For me, it's just like, thanks very much, mate. You served a really great purpose for us for the couple of years that you were with us when we drafted you when we needed you, and now, or traded for you when we needed you. Now I think it's helped develop our VFL talent, and I don't think we should be looking back there.
No, look, I mean, when he was getting a game at Fremantle, they were a poor team. And then as soon as they became a decent team, he couldn't get a game. And you've got to get past these players, unfortunately, as harsh as it sounds. And I don't know, Dust Tucker, he could be the greatest player, greatest bloke in the world. But at the end of the day, he's got a ceiling and he's reached that. And there's no way forward for him. Like, he's not going to turn into a Riley Hardiman overnight or anything like that. So, look, good role play. If you get 5 or 6 injuries, all right, he can come in and play a role for the team. But outside of that, you've got to get past these players eventually. So, yeah, I'm glad you're on board with that anyway, Dom. Now, last time we played, we'll go back to the last time we played Richmond. It was last year, round 22. A less than convincing win. It was actually a pretty ordinary game. Richmond kicked 10 goals, 17-77. We kicked pretty straight, luckily, 14 goals, 6-90. It's probably remembered for avoiding the wooden spoon. Luke Davies-Uniacke kicked 3 goals, had 33 touches, was probably best on ground. Nick Larkey had his kicking boots on that day. 5 goals. Dustin Martin's last game in his career, Dom, and there was someone else's last game in his career that played there. Do you remember who that was?
Oh, no, you've got me there.
Jaden Stevenson.
Oh, great.
North Melbourne legend, Jaden Stevenson. So.
The great. Who can forget that smile?
Yeah, that's right. Any fond memories of Jaden Stevenson? He had a couple of decent games, didn't he?
He did, and like that's just someone who unfortunately couldn't live up to the potential. But good on him for making the decision that was best for his mental health and the best for himself. And I wish him all the best. And he did contribute at a time when we were pretty down and provided some exciting moments. But I'm not sure what he's doing now. But I don't think he's playing footy at the moment.
He's playing local footy for his local team. Might be Narre Warren, where he's from, or something like that, dominating there, as you do. But he's doing. I've seen him on his Instagram. He's doing a couple of things. Yeah. I'm not too sure what they are.
Yeah, his own podcast there for a while as well, I think.
Yeah, I did see that. He had a few guests. I think he had Luke McDonald on at one stage and a few others. So, yeah, I think that's gone in the can. But, good luck to him anyway in his future endeavours. He's still only about 24, 25 years old. He's still young.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're
going... Yeah, I know it is, but that's the way it goes. Now, we're going into the game favourites. I hate to say it, but it's almost a must-win, isn't it? As stupid as that is to say, considering we're second last, we're not going to play finals or anything like that. But we've got to start getting a win. And this is as good as an opportunity we're going to have over probably, before the bye anyway.
Yeah, look, and there'll be at no point of this game, even if we are 80 points in front going into the last quarter, where I will feel comfortable and confident about getting the win. Look, I think the main aim for us is going to be certainly to start the first quarter well, and certainly put some scoreboard pressure on, and not let Richmond, you know, put our stamp on the game as early as possible, and then I think we could from there have the confidence that as long as we play the remaining three quarters the way we've approached the last three games, we should be okay. I'm confident that the maturity of the side has come a long way, even since the Good Friday game, and I'm confident that they won't approach this game thinking that it's in the bag.
No, that's exactly right. I was saying my internet is playing up again. Can you hear me, Dom?
Yeah, got you.
I said my internet played up again. So can you hear me all right now? Oh, beautiful. Geez, this is turned into a very interesting podcast, to say the least. You mentioned the first quarter. We haven't won a first quarter this year, but this is as good as opportunity as any, isn't it?
Who knows what's going to happen, dude? We could kick 5 goals and look like that team that played against Collingwood last year, or we could be 3 goals down, and I don't think any one of our supporters would be surprised.
Yeah, exactly right. But we know for 3 goals down, that's actually probably not a bad achievement for us, the way the first quarters have gone this year. But it's very hard, to work your way back into the game each week if you're going to be behind at first quarter. Generally, 7 times out of 10, the team that's leading it in the first quarter wins a game, Dom.
Yeah, and look, it's hard because I feel like last year we started our games really well and weren't able to finish them. Whereas this year it seems to be a much different focus, and it's kind of systemic of sort of the language that Clarko uses, that he wants to be in games longer and be there with a chance to win at 3/4 time. It'd be so much easier if we weren't chasing a 20-point deficit or thereabouts, or in the worst case, more. So look, I'm going into the game feeling comfortable that we'll approach it with the right mindset, but with absolute no confidence as to whether or not we'll come away with the win.
Yeah, it's almost at this stage. It's not like the AFLW where you just know you're going to win even before the first ball is bounced. But this is a very different kettle of fish. It's almost the complete opposite of the AFLW team. How have you seen Clarko so far this year? He seems to keep saying the same message every week. We just want to be in games. We just want to be in games. Is that a good enough message to sell to supporters, Dom?
Look, I was frustrated there for a while, and I'm not sure if the management team or the media team has given him a bit of advice, but I really feel like that in the last month he's started to give us a little bit more. And he sort of spoke about a bit more about the data that they're looking into each week, and it was the first time I heard him talk about a couple of weeks ago about being in quarters longer, and mentioning that last year it was none from 6 games or whatever it was, and this year it's more than that. So I feel like if you can continue to give the supporters a bit more information as to what we're looking for, when the only thing that we can really judge from afar, because we're not inside those 4 walls, is the wins and losses, he has to let us in a little bit more. And if that means exposing a bit more to the competition as to what sort of things he's looking at, well, then so be it. But at least he's selling his supporters a bit more hope, because I can't keep going into games just accepting a loss anymore. It's too frustrating. The other thing that I think he doesn't acknowledge enough is the 4 or 5 years before him, where we had to endure a very, very average team. And I know that's not his fault, but the rebuild for us didn't start when Clarko got the gig. The rebuild started for us before Noble, after Scott, really, is how long we've been waiting for it. So I think him saying that we can't be impatient and these things will turn quickly. Like we got to start putting a bit more something more tangible than just being able to be in quarters longer or whatever it might be. And I think this year, if he had got 1 or 2 of those wins, and we were sort of whatever it is, 3 and 6, coming into this round, or even 2-7, I feel like we'd be okay, especially if one of those scalps was an Adelaide, or in this case, like a Brisbane Lions. But where we stand right now, it is completely unacceptable for us to say we're happy with where we're going as a side.
No, that's a fair message as well. So, and like you sort of said, he hasn't been here the whole time. It did start before Noble, but we haven't had much luck in that time. Noble was going to build his team around Ben Cunnington, and he was turning into one of the best midfielders in the competition, if not the best midfielder in the competition. He was outstanding until he got, the illness and so forth. And when he came back, he wasn't the same player, and that was really unfortunate. We also had the whole Taron Thomas thing as well. High quality footballer who would put a lot of time into, a lot of care into, and he screwed us over. So we've had his issues with the Hawthorn racism saga. We've just had we've had a lot of bad luck in the last few years. I'm not to make excuses about everything, but we haven't had things go our way exactly, have we? Probably since Carey decided to sleep with his best mate's missus.
Yeah. Oh mate, one day, you can write a story. Hopefully, it's like the what is it? The journey to 2028 premiership for Premiership Kangaroos or something like that.
I hope so.
And we can sort of tell some of these stories. But it's just been so unfortunate. The distractions off field, the board issues, the financial issues, this constant, relocation and Harrow constantly being at us, and Damien Barrett and others who just will continue to just hold the torch to the fire. So look, I agree, we've had a fair bit of bad luck, but we've also been our own worst enemies in some ways as well, right? Some of the appointments of coaches that we've made have just been silly knee-jerk reaction type appointments. I'm obviously looking forward to the future, and I applaud what Clarko has been able to do around building some stability around the club. But we just need to see, as a fan base, some of that, and not even as an older statesman fan base, right? Like, I've got young kids. I've got a 14-year-old son who, he the only memory he's got of winning games is whatever highlights I'm showing him from 2016 or whatever, right? Like, he's endured so much as a young supporter of the team, and he's stuck fat through it all because, to be honest, he hasn't been given much choice, because I didn't get any choices as to which side I got to barrack for when I was a kid. But yes, it's for that younger generation who hasn't seen success. That's who it's and you can see it in the supporter-based numbers, right? You only have to see our membership compared to some of the other Victorian teams. We're lacking in that space. They've got to be able to attract some youth into the supporter base, and the only way you can do that is by winning games and being an exciting team to watch on field.
Well, I guess you're teaching your kids resilience, to stick through, to be loyal when things are tough. You stick loyal. It's not always going to be, rainbows and sunshines.
It was pretty shaky there last year, Dan. I'm not going to lie.
I'm not surprised, to be honest with you. But look, hopefully we're over that and we can only move forward. But every time I think that, we start having a period of losing about 4 or 5 games by 10 goals or something like that. So
we could be back here next week talking about how we lost to Richmond and we want to burn the place down. That's we are literally on that sort of knife edge at the moment. It's as a fan base, we've endured way more than what we deserve.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of pressure on us this week. It's the first time we've been favourites in a game this year. I mean, if we lose this game this week, you got to question everything, don't you? All of a sudden, you go back, full circle again and sort of say, well, where are we at it now?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know who coined the saying, but the old, some games are worth more than 4 points. This is definitely one of those, right? It's definitely. I think we had nothing to lose last week, right? We gained some respect drawing with the premiers last year. But this game and subsequently the West Coast game later on in the rounds is going to be one of those must-win ones, because they're those teams around us. And then if we can get a scalp higher up the ladder, those are the ones that you can really build some momentum from. But these absolutely must-win games.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got to beat the teams around us. It's as simple as that. We've beaten Melbourne. We've got a comfortable win against them. We've got to get Richmond, West Coast, teams around that, and then we can sort of build from there. Try and pinch a couple against fringe top 8 teams as well. But yeah, we'll get back onto the Richmond game this week. Who have you got? Now I say this every week. Who you got as a potential match winner going this week?
I'm going to hope and keep all my fingers crossed that LDU absolutely rips it apart this week. I think, he's been building towards a huge game. I think, if he can get north of, 35, 36 possessions, kick a couple of goals, especially like potentially late in the game if it's close, which it highly probably could be. I think that would do wonders for our side. And I think he's the sort of player that can really, carry the team forward. You saw Tristan and Comden try and do it last week, and it probably wasn't quite enough. But yeah, I think LDU is due for a big one, and I hope it's him against the Tigers.
Yeah, I think this one is the real opportunity where he can really go off the leash. There were signs last week where he was getting off the leash. Just on him, a lot of people are critical of his kicking. They see that as a big deficiency. Do you see that as well?
Yeah, look, his disposal efficiency is not great. It's better than Jai's, which is saying something.
Well, that's a low bar.
Yeah, it's a low bar. Look, what I will say, and I noticed this in the Brisbane game, and whether or not the coaches have sort of given him a bit of an instruction, but he's taken an extra half a second to just think about the next thing he does. And that turnover in the Port Adelaide game where I can't remember who he handballed it straight to in the Port Adelaide colours. That's probably ringing front and centre in his brain. But yeah, I think he's that attribute that like he doesn't get easily tackled, so just use it to your advantage. And it's what made him worth, what is it, $1 bazillion he's worth per year for us. So yeah, just get that confidence back. He's an absolute superstar, and he might be just down in a bit of confidence and a bit of form. But yeah, I really hope it's him this week.
Well, that's probably, you can say that about a lot of players too. They're probably just lacking a little bit of belief that we can actually win games of football at the moment. So once we can get past that, you can probably see the best out of these players like LDU, Sheasel, and Tristan Xerri. I'm going to get on Tristan Xerri again this week. He's just, he's in a real purple patch to the degree I've never seen. And I've never expected that this from Tristan Xerri a year and a half ago. If you told me that he was going to be this player, Dom, I would have stopped the podcast. I probably would have finished it, to be honest with you. I would have said, everyone's on drugs. This is bullshit. I'm not fucking putting up with this shit. But, he is another level. And I would never have picked this in the last year and a half.
No. I think I can remember yourself and Jesse having a conversation maybe early in the season last year, and then midway through both eating some humble pie about how Tristan was going. So, and don't worry, there was 40,000 other North supporters out there doing the same thing. We would have taken a can of Coke and a bag of chips to trade him a few years ago, and now it would have to be substantially more than that.
Oh. Without doubt, no, you can't get rid of him. Like I was critical of the club re-signing for long term halfway through last year. I'm thinking, what are they doing that for? There's no rush. He's only played half a year of good football, but he's another level. And I mocked him at the start of last year, calling him future All Australian, Tristan Xerri, and now he's going to be a future All Australian without a question of doubt. He's going to win a Brownlow. He's going to do everything. He's pretty much carrying this club. Final prediction for the game, Dom?
I've got a funny feeling it's going to be us out to a bit of a lead at the start of the game, Richmond to come back, but then us to probably get over the line by about anywhere between 18 and 24 points.
No, okay. Yeah, no, I'll take that, to be honest with you. As long as it's convincing enough to win by 3 or 4 goals, I'd probably take that. So, yeah, we'll see how you go. Anyways, Dom, before we cut out this, not to jinx it or anything, before this internet cuts out or anything like that, any final messages out there?
No, just thanks very much for having me on, and thanks very much for continuing on the podcast even through the darkest of possible times. I know it's hard to carve out time if you add your schedule to talk about something when it's so hard to get motivated even to talk about it with your friends and mates. So you've offered a lot of therapy to us supporters each week, and a lot of comedy along the way. So look, just Go Roos. Hopefully we get a win on Sunday. I'll be there at the ground. First time in a long time that my son and I have been to the G. So let's see how we go.
No, sounds good. No, it's I've been. Did we play somewhere else there earlier in the year? I don't think we have we? Because I've been there a couple of times, but I haven't been there for a North game. So it might be our only. We've probably got one more game this year at the G. I'm not even too sure. I haven't looked that far. Oh, we played Essendon, didn't we?
No,
that was at Marvel. Yeah, oh, there you go. That's how well I'm going. So, no, but thanks for the nice words, Dom. There's a few other North podcasts as well, so we all suffer together, so that always makes it a lot easier. Thank God it's not me by myself. But thank you, Dom, so much for coming on. I'm sure I'll chat to you very soon. I'll try and get you back on regularly. Appreciate you coming on tonight anyway.
Thanks very much for having me, Dean.
No, thank you. And thank you to all your listeners as well. I will try and be back Monday evening this week to go through our hopefully win against Richmond. But give a thumbs up, subscribe, leave a comment, tell your mates about it and whoever about it. That's it from me. Bye for now and go Roos.